wind howls across the sagebrush plains of the Uintah Basin, carrying with it secrets that represent a darkness older than the recorded history of the United States. This is a landscape where the boundary between our reality and a nightmarish otherworld wears thin and occasionally breaks completely. Locals whisper of a curse that permeates the soil and infects the minds of those foolish enough to linger after the sun dips below the horizon. It is a place where ancient indigenous legends bleed into modern-day horror stories, creating a tapestry of fear that suffocates the brave and the skeptical alike. The silence here is not empty, but heavy with the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows of the mesas. Deep within this desolate geography lies a sprawling property known, famously, as Skinwalker Ranch, which has become the epicenter of high strangeness in the American West. To the uninitiated observer, the ranch appears as nothing more than dry earth and cattle grazing land bordered by picturesque rock ridges. However, beneath this mundane facade lurks a predatory intelligence that defies all scientific explanation and rational understanding. The history of this land is stained with the blood of conflict and the terrified whispers of the Ute tribe, who refuse to set foot on the cursed earth. They know that something walks these grounds that is neither man nor beast, but a twisted amalgamation of both. For generations, the indigenous people of Utah have warned outsiders about the path of the Skinwalker, a sorcerer capable of shape-shifting into varying animal forms to exact malevolent deeds. This entity is not merely a myth to be told around campfires, but a tangible threat that stalks the ridge lines and hunts in the darkness. The ranch sits directly in the path of what the tribes call the path of the Skinwalker, serving as a highway for entities that do not belong in our dimension. Those who ignore the warnings often find themselves the target of a psychological warfare that targets their deepest fears and unravels their sanity thread by thread. In the mid-90s, a family named the Shermans purchased the 480-acre property hoping to establish a successful cattle ranch and raise their children in the quiet countryside. Terry Sherman and his wife Gwen were hardworking people who valued the solitude and the promise of a new beginning away from the chaos of city life. They arrived with a prize-winning herd of cattle and dreams of a peaceful existence under the vast Utah sky. Little did they know that they had just signed a contract with a nightmare that would consume their lives and leave them questioning the very nature of reality itself. Upon moving into the modest homestead, the Shermans noticed immediate oddities that sent a subtle chill down their spines. The previous owners had abandoned the property, but left behind strange modifications that hinted at a siege mentality. Every window and door in the main house was fortified with heavy deadbolts on both the inside and the outside. as if they were trying to keep something out or keep something in. Massive iron stakes and heavy chains were found installed near the dog kennels, suggesting that even the animals required extreme containment measures. The house felt less like a home and more like a fortress built to withstand an assault from an unknown enemy, the first true sign that something was terribly wrong occurred on the very day the Shermans brought their cattle onto the pasture. Out in the distance, Terry spotted a wolf of impossible size, casually loping across the field toward the family and their livestock. This was not a coyote or a feral dog, but a creature that stood nearly as tall as a man at the shoulder, with fur that looked like wet gray moss. The animal did not show aggression initially, and even allowed the family to approach it with a strange sense of calm. It acted tame, almost domesticated, which lulled the family into a false sense of security. The massive wolf approached the corral and suddenly lunged through the bars, grabbing a calf by its snout with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. Terry and his son reacted instantly, grabbing axe handles and striking the beast repeatedly on its back to force it to release the livestock. The strikes landed with dull thuds, as if they were hitting a bag of cement rather than a living animal. Yet the creature did not flinch or make a sound. It maintained its iron grip on the screaming calf, displaying a supernatural resilience that terrified the men. Terry realized physical force was useless and ran to his truck to retrieve a powerful handgun. Terry returned with a .35-7 Magnum revolver and fired point blank into the ribs of the giant wolf. The impact should have dropped a bear, yet the wolf did not even bleed or release the calf. Terry fired again and again until the creature finally let go and looked at him with eyes that displayed a chilling human intelligence. It did not run away in panic, but simply turned and trotted away at a leisurely pace, as if the bullets were nothing more than annoying insect bites. A chunk of flesh had been blown off by the final shot, but there was no blood, only a strange rot red tissue underneath. Determined to track the beast, Terry and his son grabbed rifles and followed the massive paw prints into the thick brush near a muddy creek bed. They tracked the animal for nearly a mile until the footprints suddenly vanished in the middle of a mud patch. It was as if the creature had evaporated into thin air or been lifted straight up into the sky by an invisible hand. The silence of the forest was deafening as the men stood over the last track, realizing they were dealing with something that defied the laws of physics. A cold dread settled in their stomachs. Following the wolf incident, the activity on the ranch escalated from strange biological encounters to terrifying aerial phenomena. The family began to witness glowing orbs of light floating silently above the cattle herds at night, maneuvering with impossible speed and agility. These were not airplanes or satellites, but intelligent balls of energy that seemed to be observing the life below. Some lights were the size of softballs, while others were as large as houses, illuminating the entire valley with a blinding blue radiance. The lights would often hover just feet above the ground before shooting straight up into the stars at impossible velocities. The cattle began to suffer in ways that went beyond simple predation or natural illness. Terry would find his prize cows dead in the field, with no signs of struggle or tracks leading to the carcass. The animals were found with specific organs, removed with surgical precision, using cuts that were cauterized and bloodless. Eyes, ears, and reproductive organs were cored out, as if by a laser, leaving the rest of the body untouched. Scavengers like coyotes and vultures, which would normally swarm a carcass within hours, refused to go near these mutilated remains, leaving them to rot in the sun. The horror followed the family inside their home, invading their sanctuary and turning their daily lives into a chaotic struggle for sanity. Objects would disappear from one room and reappear in the microwave or the freezer days later. Heavy furniture would drag itself across the floor in the middle of the night, waking the family with the sound of screeching wood. Gwen Sherman would come home from work to find all her groceries unpacked and arranged in geometric patterns on the kitchen floor. The entity seemed to be taunting them, playing a sick game to demonstrate its total control over their environment. Shadowy figures began to appear inside the house, standing in doorways or watching from the foot of the bed, while the family tried to sleep. These were not transparent ghosts, but solid silhouettes that blocked out the light and radiated a feeling of intense malevolence. Terry would wake up gasping for air, feeling a heavy weight pressing down on his chest as a dark form loomed over him. The dogs, which were usually fierce protectors, would cower under the porch whining and refusing to come out even when commanded. The animals could sense the predator long before the humans could see it. One winter night, the family witnessed a phenomenon that looked like a portal opening in the dark sky above the ridgeline. Through high-powered binoculars, Terry watched as a bright orange hole appeared in the blackness, revealing another blue sky on the other side. He claimed to see black triangular craft flying out of the portal and descending silently toward the ranch property. This was not a hallucination, as multiple family members witnessed the tier in reality. It suggested that the ranch was a doorway, a cosmic transit station for beings traveling between worlds. The psychological toll became unbearable, as the family felt constantly watched by an intelligence that anticipated their every move. They would have conversations inside the house, only to hear a disembodied voice repeat their words back to them from the darkness outside the window. The voice was metallic and devoid of emotion, mocking their fear and helplessness. Sleep became impossible as the walls of the house would bang and shake. as if giant fists were pounding on the exterior siding. The Shermans were living in a war zone where the enemy was invisible and omnipotent. One evening, the family dogs chased a glowing blue orb into a dense thicket of trees, barking furiously as they cornered the anomaly. Terry heard the dogs yelping in panic, followed by a sudden and terrible silence that blanketed the woods. The next morning, Terry went to investigate the area and found only 3 scorched circles of grease on the ground where his loyal pets had been. The dogs had been incinerated instantly, leaving nothing behind but a residue on the grass. This was the breaking point for the Sherman family, who realized their lives were in imminent danger. Desperate for answers and safety, the Shermans sold the ranch to Robert Bigelow, a wealthy hotel magnate with a deep interest in the paranormal. Bigelow established the National Institute for Discovery Science and brought in a team of scientists to study the ranch. He installed 24-hour surveillance cameras, motion detectors, and scientific instruments to capture hard data. The goal was to apply the scientific method to the supernatural and prove once and for all what was happening. However, the intelligence on the ranch did not appreciate being observed. The phenomenon seemed to play games with the scientists, actively avoiding cameras and disabling equipment at crucial moments. Brand new cables were found shredded, and cameras were ripped from their mountings by unseen hands. Whenever a camera was pointed in a certain direction, the activity would occur directly behind it in the blind spot. It was as if the entity knew the schematic of the surveillance grid and mocked the attempts to capture it on film. The scientists reported feeling a sense of dread and nausea whenever they approached certain areas of the property. One night, 2 scientists were observing the ranch from a bluff when they saw a pair of glowing yellow eyes staring at them from a tree branch. They fired a rifle at the creature and saw it fall to the ground. But when they investigated, they found only a single giant footprint. The print was reptilian in nature, with 3 large toes and sharp claws, resembling a dinosaur track more than any local wildlife. Plaster casts were taken, but no zoologist could identify the species. The creature had vanished, leaving only a physical trace to prove it had been there. The researchers also encountered the invisible predator that the Shermans had described, a force that moved through the tall grass like a wind. They watched as the grass was trampled down by heavy footsteps approaching their position. Yet nothing was visible to the naked eye. The air would turn freezing cold, and the smell of sulfur and rotting flesh would fill the nose. Some of the hardened scientists fled the ranch in terror, refusing to ever return after coming face to face with the unseen presence. The data they collected was often corrupted or erased mysteriously. Another terrifying incident involved a cow being teleported from its pasture into a small trailer that was locked from the outside. The scientists found the animal squeezed into the tiny space in a state of catatonic shock, unable to move. There were no tracks leading to the trailer, and the only way inside was a door that was still padlocked. It was a demonstration of power, a show of force, to prove that physical barriers meant nothing to the entity. The cow had to be euthanized due to the trauma. A senior physicist on the team reported seeing a humanoid creature crawling out of a tunnel that had materialized midair near the homestead. The being was dark and featureless, crawling through the dimensional rift like a spider before dropping to the ground and sprinting away into the night. This sighting confirmed the portal theory, suggesting that the ranch sat on top of a weak point in the fabric of space-time. The entities were not coming from outer space, but from another layer of reality that intersected with our own. The investigation revealed that the activity was not random, but reactive, responding to the emotional state of the people on the ranch. When the researchers were aggressive or provocative, the phenomenon would respond with violence and intimidation. When they were fearful, the activity would ramp up to feed on that energy. It was a feedback loop between the human mind and the paranormal force. The ranch was a mirror, reflecting the subconscious fears of those who walked its soil. The most disturbing aspect of the investigation was the hitchhiker effect, where the phenomenon would follow the scientists home. Researchers reported poltergeist activity in their own houses, hundreds of miles away from the ranch. Their families experienced shadow people nightmares and strange illnesses that doctors could not diagnose. The contagion spread like a virus, proving that the entity was not bound by the geography of the Uintah Basin. It attached itself to people and traveled with them, invading their safe havens. One particular scientist reported that his wife and children began seeing black wolves in their suburban backyard after he returned from a rotation at the ranch. The horror had followed him home, threatening the people he loved most. This revelation caused many of the team members to resign, fearing for the safety of their families. The investigation began to fall apart as the human cost became too high to justify the scientific curiosity. The ranch was winning the war of attrition. The legends of the Ute tribe speak of the Skinwalkers as beings that thrive on suffering and discord, creating chaos for their own amusement. The events at the ranch aligned perfectly with these ancient descriptions, suggesting the old stories were warnings, not fairy tales. The land was considered holy ground by some and cursed ground by others, a duality that fueled the energy of the location. The scientists realized they were intruders in a realm that operated on rules they could not comprehend. Despite years of study and millions of dollars spent, the National Institute for Discovery Science could not produce a definitive explanation for the phenomena. They captured anomalies on radar recorded strange magnetic spikes and documented radiation bursts, but the source remained elusive. The intelligence was always one step ahead, anticipating the experiments and changing its behavior to avoid detection. It was a humbling experience for men of science who believed everything could be measured and categorized. Robert Bigelow eventually sold the ranch to a new owner, Adam Brandon, who continued the investigation with a fresh team and modern technology. The television show capturing these new efforts brought the mystery to a global audience, but the danger remained real. The new team faced the same equipment, malfunctions, health issues, and terrifying encounters as their predecessors. Digging into the ground resulted in serious injuries and mysterious illnesses, suggesting the earth itself protected its secrets. One memorable event for the new team involved a high-powered rocket launch designed to stimulate the anomaly above the triangle area. As the rocket ascended, it struck an invisible object in the sky and bounced off, crashing to the ground. The sensors detected a massive solid object hovering silently above the ranch, completely invisible to the eye and cameras. It was a tangible proof that something massive was parking itself over the property, watching the humans below like ants in a terrarium. The mystery of the directive to never dig on the ranch became a central theme of the horror. Whenever heavy machinery broke the ground, the activity would spike to dangerous levels. Workers would suffer sudden headaches, nausea, and radiation burns appearing on their skin. It was as if the ground served as a lid for a container of pure malevolence, and opening it would unleash hell. The ranch demanded to be left alone its soil, undisturbed by the curiosity of man. Strange signals were detected emanating from deep beneath the mesa, suggesting a technological source buried within the rock. This led to theories of an ancient alien base or a crashed vessel dormant for thousands of years. The signals were complex and encrypted, broadcasting a message that no computer could decipher. The idea that an advanced intelligence was living beneath their feet added a layer of claustrophobic terror to the experience. They were walking on top of the sleeping giant. The locals in the Uintah Basin continue to report sightings of strange lights and creatures, even when the ranch is quiet. The phenomenon spills over the fences, affecting the neighbors and the surrounding community. Police reports in the area are filled with accounts of cattle mutilation and UFO sightings that are officially unresolved. The ranch is merely the heart of a much larger organism that spreads its tentacles throughout the region. Skeptics argue that the stories are mass hysteria or misidentified natural phenomena, but the sheer volume of evidence suggests otherwise. The physical effects on the people and animals are undeniable medical facts. The radiation burns the autoimmune diseases, and the physical trauma cannot be explained away by imagination. Something radioactive and toxic exists at Skinwalker Ranch. Something that degrades the biological systems of living things. The story of Skinwalker Ranch is a modern ghost story that blends the folklore of the past with the technological paranoia of the present. It challenges our understanding of the universe and our place within it. It forces us to confront the possibility that we are not the top of the food chain, and that there are forces in the dark that view us as nothing more than lab rats. The ranch stands as a monument to the unknown, a dark void on the map where reality goes to die. As the sun sets over the Uintah Basin, the shadows stretch long and deep, concealing the horrors that wake with the moon. The wolf waits in the brush, the portal swirls in the sky, and the invisible watchers take their positions. The ranch is never truly empty, for the land itself is alive and conscious, remembering every trespass. It waits for the next fool to unlock the gate and step into the trap, ready to feed on their fear. To this day, the true nature of Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the paranormal world. Is it a military testing, ground an alien base, or a portal to hell? The answer may be far more terrifying than any of those options. It may be that the ranch is a sentient piece of geography, a predator that uses the landscape as camouflage, and it is always hungry for new visitors. The warning remains clear to those who seek to uncover the truth of this cursed place. Do not look too closely at the abyss, for the abyss is looking back at you with yellow eyes. The spirits of the skinwalkers do not rest, and they do not forgive intrusion. The silence of the desert is a deception, a mask worn by a chaotic force that has existed since the dawn of time. Those who manage to leave the ranch often find that they never truly escape its grip. The nightmares continue, the health problems persist, and the feeling of being watched never fades. They carry a piece of the darkness with them, a souvenir from the other side. The ranch claims a piece of your soul as payment for the passage, leaving you hollow. In the end, Skinwalker Ranch serves as a humbling reminder of the limits of human knowledge. We build fences and install cameras, believing we can control our environment. But there are powers that mock our efforts. The ranch will likely keep its secrets buried in the red dirt, guarded by the ancient spirits. It is a scar on the face of the earth that will never heal. The legend grows with each passing year, drawing more curiosity seekers to the perimeter of the property. They stand at the gates, staring into the gloom, hoping to catch a glimpse of the impossible. But inside the fence, the darkness waits patiently. It knows that curiosity is the bait and fear is the hook. The skinwalker watches and waits,